public. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And colleagues, I would like this matter to be taken now, Mr. Speaker. And also, I would like to set aside some rules of the House so that we can take it now, Mr. Speaker. The subject is, there are some foreign companies, Mr. Speaker, who are very eager to sponsor, finance, and provide some technical services to what they call the modernization of customs, Mr. Speaker, without recourse to the National Assembly.
Urgent, please say aye. Once against, please say nay. Ayes have it.
President of law of in federal constituency. Mr. Speaker, by your grace and blessing, I'm the chairman of public petition. My motion is the need to investigate the curious proposed concession arrangement between the consortium, Bionica Technologies West Africa Limited, who are the sponsors, Bagman Security Consultants and Supply Limited, who are co-sponsors, Africa Finance Corporation, lead financer, and Hawaii lead technical service provider, and the Nigeria Customs Service and Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission, ICRC, for the Customs Modernization Project. Mr. Speaker, the House knows, the House is aware that various Nigerian governments in the past had embarked on customs and excise modernization. Example, in the 90s, there was the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UTAD, contract for the installation of Ascuda++ and training of customs officers for 3 years. And at the end, the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UTAD, was to hand over the installation to customs, and that contract was referred to as the UTAD component of the new modernization. They are further aware that later the federal government insisted that the former prepayment companies should be engaged to assist customs functions in the areas of classification and valuation of goods. Hence, some service providers, namely Wayfontaine, Cotecna, AGS, and Global Scam, were engaged by the government for that purpose. And this contract was to last for 7 years, Mr. Speaker, from 2005 to 2012. And at the end, the service providers handed over to the Nigeria Customs. The House knows that by 2011, one can say that the positive effects of modernization of the Nigeria Customs Service included competent and committed workforce among the customs, personnel understanding of the new process of clearance by stakeholders, benefits to both the business community and the government, proper collection of revenue due, elimination of corruption, and encouragement of foreign investments. The House knows that with those early modernizations, there exists today Trade Community Network, or one-stop shop, which allows all trade transactions to be conducted through a single system domiciled with the customs. Example, Mr. Speaker, all other government agencies like NAFDAC, shipping companies, and trade stakeholders have today dissolved into a single point of decision-making with the Nigeria Customs Service. Disturbed that in 2011, Mr. Speaker, there was illegal concession agreement between the Federal Ministry of Finance and a company with inadequate capital base called Single Window System and Technology, signed in secrecy during the government transition period. And this responsible House of Representatives had a public hearing and stopped it and saved Nigeria billions of naira, via the votes and proceedings of Wednesday, 13 July 2011. They have further disturbed that in 2017, another concession attempt in the name of further modernization of customs was made by the Technical Committee on the Comprehensive Import Supervision Scheme, purported to be acting on behalf of the federal government, called Adani Nigeria Systems Limited, to finance, rehabilitate, operate, manage, maintain, develop, and optimize the scanning needs of the country in line with the provisions of Precision Inspection Act for a period of 25 years. Again, the attention of the Comptroller General of Customs was drawn to this by the then Chairman Committee on Customs and members, and the concession was stopped. Mr. Speaker, incidentally, the Chairman of the Customs Committee, Mr. Feleke, is here to attest to that. Curious that in September 2019, another concession, which will last for 20 years, that is the subject matter now, is being suggested to the Nigeria Customs Service, Infrastructure Concession Regulation Commission, Federal Minister of Finance, Budget and Planning, Federal Minister of Justice, and this agreement is for pro rata sharing of 1% Comprehensive Import Supervision Scheme, CIS, and phase one of the $300 billion investment, Mr. Speaker. Worried that billions of naira will be filtered away from the account of 1% Comprehensive Import Supervision Scheme with the Central Bank of Nigeria regarding the cost of this latest proposed custom modernization by different parties involved in its logistics and takeoff. Further worried that there's no difference, Mr. Speaker, in substance, scope, and structure between the failed concessions attempts of 2011, 2017, and this 2019. There's already a national single window platform in the Nigeria Customs Service, and the officers of the Nigeria Customs Service nowadays are performing beyond expectation, collecting duties of billions of naira on a daily basis. Mr. Speaker, convinced that the federal government is being misled by advice on the economic effects of this 1% comprehensive post supervision scheme, which has accumulated in billions of naira in the Central Bank of Nigeria, and a motion for the Central Bank of Nigeria to account for the disbursement and management of this money was moved in this Senate chamber on the 8th Assembly. The House therefore resolved, mandate the Committee on Finance, Customs, Public Education, Committee on Agreement and Treaty of the House to conduct a public hearing on the above period proposed concession and unveil the foreign and local interested parties in this consortium of sponsors, co-sponsors, financiers, and technical consultants. 2, mandate the committees above to also investigate the expenditure and disbursement patterns of this 1% comprehensive policy between 2012, Mr. Speaker, when the other service providers, that's other previous modernizers of customs, handed over the Nigeria Customs Service, and now. 3, all the different parties involved to maintain status quo pending the outcome of the public hearing and report back in 3 weeks. Mr. Speaker, I so present.
Those in support, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it.
This motion is not crying wolf, Mr. Speaker. It's about 3 or 4 foreign companies, Mr. Speaker, who are interested in modernizing customs and seeking partnership with a lot of ministries without recourse to the National Assembly. They met that to meet Federal Minister of Finance, that to meet Federal Minister of Justice, that to meet Planning and Budget, that to meet ICRC, that to meet Nigeria Customs, but there's no way they mention Nigeria National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, we just found out that these companies are about bringing their selfish agenda into the national economy. They are bringing their selfishness into the national economic agenda because most of them are not qualified for this modernization they are talking about. Mr. Speaker, another thing is the target for this is 1% CIS. Mr. Speaker, there's need for me to explain what it is. What 1% CIS means, 1% of Comprehensive Import Supervision Scheme, which every importer pays when it brings in any goods from the seaport, from the airport, and from the border. Mr. Speaker, is a huge money. And that's from where the central bank pays customs and retains the balance. Mr. Speaker, this balance is always very huge. And that's why all the modernizers or concessionaries are targeting it. By 2011, Mr. Speaker, you were here when a motion was moved about single window. The attempt of the single window then was to appropriate the custom activities through this 1% CIS. And that was killed by members through other committee, and it was stopped. And Mr. Speaker, I have the votes and proceedings here to show. Mr. Speaker, again, in 2017, one company called Adani entered into an illegal agreement with the technical committee of the Central Bank, which supervises this 1%. Mr. Speaker, when we saw this, we drew the attention of the CG, and he came, Mr. Fale came, because I have to talk with FAST, who was the chairman of the custom committee, took this into him, and he saw it. Mr. Speaker, that arrangement was cut, it was killed. Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised that this year again, the thing has surfaced in another form. This time around by foreign companies, which some of these companies I know, I don't know whether they have Nigeria counterparts. But Mr. Speaker, they are all very suspicious, especially when we consider succession or concession that no money should be spent without recourse to here. They are all eager to benefit from this 1%, which I told you is very huge. Mr. Speaker, the most important thing is that by 2012, the other modernizers had already handed over modernization process to customs. And customs are now well equipped to embark on internal modernization because they have gone on what they call train the trainers courses. They are now teaching themselves. So there's no point for any other external modernization. That is why we are crying, raising an alarm that there's no way these foreigners will come and teach us what the customs already have learned. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the customs have done a lot. Today, you can hear the CG of customs saying that they collect between 5 to 9 billion on a daily basis, Mr. Speaker. It's very attractive. And that's why these people are keen it to see whether they can talk about modernization so that they can pay from that 1%. Mr. Speaker, the journey so far is so good for customs. Mr. Speaker, another thing we will talk about is customs is so rosy now, so productive, they are doing a lot. And that's why you can see a general being a CSO of a retired colonel. So because we are saying that customs is doing very well. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I urge all my colleagues, especially those who are ranking by age and experience, to support this motion so that we don't embark on a situation whereby, Mr. Speaker, the fall of a dead leaf is a warning to the green ones. The fact that this thing has failed in 2011, failed in 2017, there's no way it cannot fail in 2019. There's no generation that squanders what is meant for the next generation. If we allow this to happen, it means, Mr. Speaker, it is 20 years. When they retire, those who are involved in this, means the customs will continue to pay their children. Therefore, I urge this House to help me to stop this so that customs will continue to perform its statutory duties. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My prayers are, one, to mandate the Committees of Finance, Customs, Public Petition and Agreement, a treaty of the House to conduct public hearing on the above curious proposed concession and unveil the foreign and local interested parties of the consortium of sponsors, financiers, and technical consultants. One. Two, to mandate the same committees to investigate the expenditure and disbursement patterns of this 1% by the Central Bank, which was handed over to Customs in 2011. When the service provider handed over, there was no person to pay again for that. They were keeping the money. Three, they urge the different parties to maintain status quo pending the outcome of this investigation.
Those in support of this motion and its prayers, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. The ayes have it. Motion referred to the Committees on Customs, Finance, and Agreements.